Joining us now is Frank Zaccanelli.
Frank Zaccanelli.
Let's welcome Frank Zaccanelli.
Live from the Real News Studios in Dallas, Texas, welcome to the To Be Frank Show. Your host, Frank Zaccanelli, has been in the world of domestic and international business and professional sports for 40 years. And as a former minority owner, president, and general manager of the Dallas Mavericks, he's been asked to comment on current events in the national news for most of his professional career. But what he and many others are really looking for is a place to find just the facts. Welcome to the To Be Frank Show.
Hello, live from Dallas, Texas. Welcome to the To Be Frank Show. I'm your host, Frank Zaccanelli, and I'm happy to be with you today on this Thursday, kind of morning, afternoon, if you will. The show is gaining a tremendous amount of steam as we roll down the railroad tracks here. We're gaining viewers every show. We're really excited about it, and we hope that you really enjoy the information that we're providing to you on this show that is non-political, speak about the issues that everyone faces in today's world. You can reach us at the To Be Frank Show on YouTube, the To Be Frank Show on Twitter, the To Be Frank Show on LinkedIn, and the To Be Frank Show on Facebook. And we've added another medium here, the ToBeFrankShow.com, for those people like me that are completely illiterate when it comes to trying to work all these internet things. So we made it easy for the dinosaurs out there. So we're looking forward to hearing from you, and we hope that you're going to enjoy today's show. We're going to start off with playing a clip from last episode, which was on Monday, and we're going to play a clip, and I want you to watch the clip, and then I'm going to talk a little bit and play another clip and tell you what I think is going on. Roll the tape. So we're going to keep an eye on these polls, and we're going to see exactly where this goes. Again, where we are today is not necessarily where we're going to end up, but I think it is an indication of people are not happy with the handling of the coronavirus. And if I was advising Donald Trump, I would shift gears on this. I would figure out, what can be done in order to give people confidence that you're not underestimating this. Now, that was on Monday. The staff of the To Be Frank Show has now informed me that we think there's a strong possibility that the Donald himself is watching the show, because after we reported and advised on the Monday show, I want you to watch and see what happened a few days ago in a press conference, the first one, candidly, that Donald Trump has had on the coronavirus since April. Roll the tape.
It will probably, unfortunately, get worse before it gets better. Something I don't like saying about things, but that's the way it is. It's what we have. You look over the world, it's all over the world, and it tends to do that. Instead, asking Americans to use masks, socially distance, and employ vigorous hygiene, wash your hands every chance you get while sheltering high-risk populations. We are imploring young Americans to avoid packed bars and other crowded indoor gatherings, be safe and be smart.
The Donald, he's got to be watching the To Be Frank Show privately in the Oval Office. Probably didn't tell anybody, but he's got to be watching the show, because it's exactly what we advised him to do on Monday, he did on Tuesday. Now, we're happy that the President of the United States is paying attention to what's going on out there in the country. You take a look again at this pandemic. It is not going away. It is not going to evaporate. It is not going to all of a sudden not be an issue that our children are dealing with. We have a wonderful guest today, Krystal Hurst, who's going to be on in the last segment of the show. And she's the owner of the Dallas Moms and Collin County Moms Association. that has between 75,000 and 100,000 people who are involved in that organization. All moms, all concerned about everything that you're seeing and that you're reading in the newspapers and on television about the reopening of our schools. So Krystal is going to be a wealth of information about actually what's going on and how it's going to work. But we get back to the Donald. And the reason that I can call him the Donald is that as a real estate developer, you know, he was kind of the mark back in the 80s and 90s. Okay, he was on every magazine, he was everywhere. And what people don't really realize is Donald Trump got the name the Donald from his first wife, Ivana, because she was not very well schooled on the English language. And instead of calling him Donald, she called him the Donald. And it kind of stuck. So on this show, especially now that we have inside information that he's watching the show from the Oval Office by virtue of the clips that you just saw, we're going to now call him the Donald. All right. So here's the issue that I think that we need to talk about as it relates to the situation about not only the coronavirus, but the schools. This has got to stop. The politicizing of this on both sides has got to stop. Our children are now at risk here. And the issue really then becomes, and this is the most important issue, and I promise you that Krystal Hurst, an expert on this subject, is going to talk to us about this exact thing, is that the schools are going to have to handle the opening of the schools, the ones that are going to open, better than Texas, Florida, Arizona, Georgia, and about 25 other states handled the opening of this coronavirus pandemic. It was a disaster, and we cannot afford to have that happen. That's going to become an incredibly, incredibly important issue. So we've got to really, really study this now, because there's no room for error when it comes to our children. I've said this over and over and over. If a bunch of third graders start getting sick and teachers are getting sick, this is going to become a political meltdown and a meltdown for our children. And what we have to do is we have to understand this, and we've got to plan ahead. The planning for the opening of the schools better be 100 times better than the planning of opening some of these southern states. Okay, so we're going to move on now to the second segment, which ties directly in. This ties completely and directly in to everything that I just talked about. I got a problem with Governor DeSantis, which I hope will show the viewing audience here that we're not picking sides. I mean, I picked on de Blasio. I picked on the Summer of Love mayor in Seattle, and we're going to get to Teddy Wheeler up there in Portland. So I want to make a statement that we're not picking sides here. But the situation that you have is Governor DeSantis, this guy is in denial. And he politically went off the cliff with making statements. This is a man who went up to the Oval Office with Donald Trump and started pulling out charts in April about how everything was going great in his state, about how they were ahead of so many other states. Now, Florida is one of my favorite places. Okay, I got a lot of friends down there. I went to school down there for a year. Florida is a wonderful place. But look at what's happened there. Look at the numbers of cases and look at the hospitalizations as it relates to this. The last time that I looked as it relates to this issue, there were 50 some odd hospitals that were out of ICU capacity, a lot of them in Dade County, which is where Miami sits. That's a problem. There's no way to color code it. There's no way that politically you can make a decision that that's not a big issue. Okay? So this has all been reported in the news again. And what we're trying to do, because again, if you watch the cable networks or you watch network TV, if it's a couple of the cable networks, they're going to tell you DeSantis has got brain damage. Okay? The guy's nuts. Over here, if you watch another channel, what they're going to tell you is, well, DeSantis is one of the greatest governors of all time. I don't know how the hell you sort it out. But the issue really then becomes the numbers don't lie. Roll the tape.
As in Florida, where massive block parties like this one being broken up by police near Orlando are fueling concerns over the state's COVID crisis. 53 of the state's hospitals have reached ICU capacity, 8 of those in Miami-Dade County. Dr. Andrew Pastewski works for the county's largest health system.
Are you seeing any sense that things are even beginning to level off?
Oh, no. There's no sense that anything's slowing down. Every day, there's a need for more patients who need beds.
Protesters interrupted Florida Governor Ron DeSantis today amid the worsening crisis and the state's plan to open schools 5 days a week. The state's largest teachers union is now suing. Carla Hernandez-Matz is head of the Miami-Dade Teachers Union.
It is ludicrous to think that we would take our children out of these protective bubbles that we've created and kept them in for so long and expose them and use them as guinea pigs.
Well, here you go. So we get to a situation where I'm sure Governor DeSantis is a nice guy. This isn't personal. The same way it's not personal with these crazy mayors. Okay? Governor DeSantis, I'm sure, drinks beer, plays golf, fishes, does whatever the hell he does. What he did is he went to the Oval Office, and I want to get this right, on April 28th. And he sat in the Oval Office, and he started touting how well that Florida was doing as it related to the coronavirus in comparison to all these other states. Well, Governor DeSantis, I think that basically you just went off the cliff. I mean, you know, you got the worst situation. They're telling me, every virologist is telling me that Miami now is the epicenter, not only for the coronavirus in the United States, it's the epicenter for the coronavirus on the planet Earth, next to China, because they lie. And so no one knows what the hell these Chinese are doing because they lie right through their teeth. But Florida's a mess. And now you're talking about putting the kids back to school. You're talking about now playing with the lives of innocent young kids. And the sad part of this is, and this is what I've been saying for a long time since we started this show, the coronavirus has been politicized. A pandemic of this magnitude, there is no way that it breaks along party lines. There's no way. It's impossible. If I'm a Republican or I'm a Democrat, there is no way that I agree with every other person in my party lined up directly like a bunch of mules lined up all the way down the line. It's impossible. These are talking points that these guys are given. This is political stuff that we're dealing with. And we're going to get to more political stuff when it comes to Chicago, Seattle, and Portland here in a minute. Okay? But the fact of the matter is Governor DeSantis, what I would hope is that he would do pretty much what Donald Trump has now done and pivoted a little bit. The Donald pivoted the other day. Again, my staff tells me he watches the show. What the hell do I know? But what I'm telling you is that DeSantis has got to take now a cue card from Trump. And he's got to pivot a little bit, because if he does not, he's going to have a political problem that's going to follow him the rest of his political career. So these are the things that we really need to keep an eye on and take a look at. The hospitalizations and the uses of ICU beds are not deniable statistics. Hear all the crap, oh, these are young kids, nobody's getting sick. You know all the stuff. You hear it all. When you start now getting into ICU beds and bed capacities, it's no joke. There's no way you can sell around it. You can't politicize around it. So we urge Governor DeSantis and all the people who watch the show in Florida to try to get to a point where they start handling this thing from a reality standpoint, not from a political standpoint. And if they can't do it for any other reason, do it for the benefit of our children. Okay. The third segment is really a crazy, crazy deal, okay? And I have really been careful to not get on Chicago's Mayor Lori Lightfoot. And I've done it for a reason. And I want to explain to the audience exactly why I haven't really picked on her. Because she inherited this problem from long ago. This Chicago thing, as I mentioned on every show, has been going on for a long time. Barack Obama, Donald Trump, maybe even George W. Bush. I mean, we can go back. This problem has been going on the west side predominantly and the south side of Chicago for a long time. It's a systemic problem, and it's caused in its roots of the problem by systemic racism. And anybody that wants to argue with that, I'll have you on and I'll have you running off the stage in 5 minutes or less, because that's exactly what's going on here. So I've been careful with criticizing the mayor of Chicago, Lori Lightfoot, but she creates some of her own problems. This name calling back and forth between her and Kayleigh McEnany, I mean, this is ridiculous. I covered this last show. You know, they're calling each other names. You know, the mayor's a derelict and you're Karen. Okay, this is solving nothing. All it's doing is upsetting the people of the United States of America and the people in Chicago as they watch this, because this is not government working for the people. It's not. So now the Donald has now decided that he's going to get real aggressive. You've seen it in the news now. He's getting real aggressive on some of these cities and the crime problems and all the issues. I think that he believes that that's going to be a big part of his now campaign moving forward. To be candid with you, I don't think that the cities are handling this very well. And I believe that federal intervention, properly done, can be very helpful. The problem is all of these Democratic, and I'm not picking sides, Democrat, Republican, just got on DeSantis in case, you know, somebody wasn't paying attention. Okay, he's a big-time Republican. But all these Democratic mayors, okay, are not going to do what Trump wants them to do because Trump told them to do it. Even if it's better for their city, even if it's better for their children, even if it's better for their constituency, they're not going to do it because they're not going to give Donald Trump a win. In my opinion, let the election take care of itself. Do our jobs, though, what we were elected to do, which is to, number one, we have to be concerned about the safety of our constituency. That's the number one thing for all of this. Now, I want to quote something. Mayor Lightfoot, I believe, now that you guys also know, there were 15 people shot in front of a funeral home a few days ago. And this was all over the news. It's a complete meltdown. And she seems now, okay, from everything that I've researched and my cracked up research staff has given me this morning, she seems to have agreed that help is necessary, that she'll accept the help, okay, but she wants it to be in an investigative nature, not in a physical contact nature. She wants it to be done in conjunction with the Chicago police. Now, to start off, I think that's a pretty good idea. I think that's a great middle of the road. Now, that's important from the standpoint that they're at least talking to each other. There was also a report that last night Trump got Mayor Lightfoot on the phone. If that's the case, this is exactly what we need to be doing. Because like the pandemic, we can't split sides now based on where you stand on the politics side because people are dying. Children are at risk. Look what's going on in these cities. And again, we'll get to Portland and Seattle in a minute. Roll the tape on Chicago.
Today, Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot accepted the same federal help to bolster the FBI, DEA, and the ATF there. But she said that the agents would be managed in part by the U.S. Attorney for the Northern District of Illinois. Mayor Lightfoot making it very clear she is wary of federal agents being deployed as they have been in Portland, Oregon, where the feds are accused of using excessive force and violating civil rights in confrontations with groups of protesters who have been attempting to destroy the federal courthouse there. And in a tweet tonight sent by the mayor just minutes before that shooting in Chicago, Mayor Lightfoot wrote this, quote, under no circumstances will I allow Donald Trump's troops to come to Chicago and terrorize our residents.
All right. What you just saw in that statement is a cover your ass political speak. That's okay. Politicians do it. It's part of their DNA. But what I am saying is she's gone a step forward in terms of saying, send us the help, but here's how I want the help to work. And I think that's a good starting point. Okay? I think it's a good starting point. But all this stuff about people's federal, their federal ability to be able to operate as citizens and their civil rights are being challenged. These people are destroying cities. They're killing kids. I don't know where it says that. Somebody's got to explain it to me like I'm a 4-year-old. Pull it out, get the crayons, and draw it out for me because I don't understand what that is. No one understands what that is. They're wrecking property. They're throwing bottles. They're lighting buildings on fire. And you're telling me that we're worried about violating their rights? They gave up their constitutional rights when they went from protesting to rioting. You're breaking the law. I'm sure all of us have neighbors we don't get along with, except for me. I love everybody. But, we all have neighbors we don't. Go over to your neighbor's house and start a fight with him and burn his living room down. See how far you get with that, okay? You can't do that. The same thing that you can't do when you go to downtown Portland or downtown Seattle or you go to Chicago and you start burning properties down. You're throwing bottles at police. I mean, where the hell do we come up with this standard that all of a sudden people think they can do anything and get away with it? I'll tell you where we come up with it. Billy de Blasio, okay, who wants to make like there's no criminality anywhere. Do what the hell you want. Just get me reelected, okay? I mean, that's where you get it. You get it from knuckleheads like de Blasio. But if we're really being smart about this, and I believe now that Mayor Lori Lightfoot has taken the first step in the right direction. We're going to keep an eye on this story. We are going to talk about this story. I have said over and over and over, Chicago is one of the most ignored stories, not only in America, but maybe in the world. And what we've got to do is we're going to stay on top of this. So let's see how it goes. All right. Now we've got what a wonderful, wonderful topic for me. I don't know how many people have been paying attention to the Mark Cuban, Ted Cruz back and forth as it relates to everything from the national anthem to China to the NBA to Black Lives Matter. I mean, you go on and on and on. Now, for the record, just so everyone, if this is your first show, I was Ross Perot Jr.'s minority partner. We bought the Dallas Mavericks in 1996, and we sold it to Mark Cuban in 2000. I don't have any problem with Mark Cuban. Actually, I emailed with him, and I invited him on the show, and he said when he gets more time, he's going to do it. And I'll give him whatever forum that he wants here. Mark has become very, very political, I believe, in his views, which is, there's nothing wrong with this, about the Black Lives Matter movement, standing for the anthem, the NBA, China, and all these things. Now, I'm going to get into the NBA in just a minute because there are underlying problems there that nobody wants to talk about that I have a lot of information on because of my background, and I'm going to lay it out for you in just a minute. Now, on the other side, you got a very conservative senator from the state of Texas. I don't have any problem with Ted Cruz. He certainly has conservative views. He ran for president against Donald Trump. He's been, I think, a good senator for the state of Texas here. And he has taken an incredible hard line with Cuban on standing for the anthem, on China, on a lot of issues that Mark Cuban is involved with. And they've had this gigantic back and forth. Okay? Roll the tape.
So is everything going to be good with you and Mark Cuban after this, or does he have to step up and do something with the China situation?
Oh, look, I think it is unfortunate to see, number one, Cuban defending the ongoing disrespect of the flag and the national anthem, and you know, this thing all started with a Dallas radio host who was expressing that he was looking forward to going to Mavericks games, but didn't want to see people disrespecting the flag. And Cuban just said, bye, you know, good riddance, which is really, we shouldn't see sports teams telling half their fans to go jump in a lake.
So, but what's the answer here? If he says, you know, I'm not going to support the players, they're going to be like, you know, tell Mark Cuban to jump in a lake. But if he supports folks like yourself, maybe that aren't going to go to games, what's the answer?
I'll tell you what, the answer is for the NBA to show 1/1 of the spinal fortitude they show kissing up to and apologizing for communist China. When it comes to communist China, they make a crap ton of money from China, so they silence everybody. They're not willing to say a word. We're going to see these NBA players with all of these woke statements, but nothing. Show me an NBA player who's allowed to put Tiananmen Square on the back of his jersey, then I'll be impressed with their commitment.
Okay. So there's Ted Cruz in Washington commenting about the Mark Cuban thing. Now to my research staff, I want you to look up the definition of crap ton. He just said crap ton, okay? I want to know how much money that is. I might start using it. A crap ton of money, whatever the hell that is, okay? But let's look it up. Let's get the definition. Let's figure it out. All right, here's the issue. I was on CNN 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago on Don Lemon's show, and you guys can look all this up, when the NFL, the Colin Kaepernick, the whole scenario, and I said the following, and I'm paraphrasing. Number one, it is the constitutional right of every American to either stand or not stand for the anthem. Now, my personal beliefs, my father was a World War II veteran. He was a hero in World War II, the winner of the Bronze Star, among other medals that he earned. I think you should stand for the national anthem out of respect for your country, out of respect for the veterans, out of respect for the people that are fighting in the military for us. But if you don't stand for it, you're not breaking any laws. You're not doing anything other than exercising your constitutional right not to do it. Again, I told you my personal views. But if they're going to use this to express their disdain with certain things in the government and certain things in policing and certain things in the African American community, then they have the specific right to be able to do it. Now, Mark Cuban has every right in the world to take his position. Ted Cruz is talking to Mark Cuban almost like Mark Cuban is a is a communist. Not a communist. What he decided was that in his life, in his world, he's going to respect the will of people that don't want to stand up for the national anthem. And it's just that simple. And so, instead of, again, calling out everybody because I'm more patriotic than you and you're not as patriotic as me, and you go through this whole thing, okay? Here's the issue, though. Let's get back to the NBA, because I got some real statistics for you, and let me tell you, this is no joke. The NBA, according to its commissioner, who I think has done a phenomenal job, Adam Silver. I was involved in the league when Adam Silver was a deputy in the process. Russ Granick was involved as the assistant commissioner. David Stern was the commissioner, maybe one of the greatest commissioners ever. But Adam Silver has stated in February that the NBA is going to lose $400 to $500 million a year by virtue of what's going on in China. $400 to $500 million a year. And that's important. But NBA China, which is an affiliated company to the NBA, reportedly is worth $4 to $5 billion. Okay? Now that is going to be shut down. You remember what happened again? Daryl Morey, the Rockets GM, stood up for the people in Hong Kong. Chinese government had a fit. Then basically the NBA teams were over there actually playing exhibitions. They stopped the exhibitions. They took it off television and all the related stuff. China is a huge issue for the NBA, no matter what anyone says. And what Mark Cuban has done is take this view. You know what he said? I don't comment on other countries and how they treat their people. Now, you want to know what? That's an out for him. Now, between you and me, the 30 owners of the NBA back when Daryl Morey made his comment ran for cover. They ran for cover, okay? There's no other way to say it. They just didn't want to touch it because it means a lot of money. But either you're for social issues, either you're for human rights issues as it relates to China, or you're not. You either are or you're not. There's no middle ground here. And I think that's where Ted Cruz is going. Now, I think China has an enormous amount of problems. And I've been on China since we started the show, and I'll be on them till we end the show. Because I don't think they're honest people inside the government. I think the Chinese people, we got to make a distinction. This is not being like xenophobic. It's not. We're talking about the government. We're talking about the people that order under a communist regime for the people of China to have to live a certain way. That's what we're talking about here. We're not talking about the people. But when you look at the NBA situation, this is a big hit. Now you have the coronavirus. Now the season can't be played. What they're doing, in my humble opinion, is they're jamming a season in the beginning of August, if you will, when they should be getting ready for training camp for next season. Training camps open up middle to the end of September. Okay? So they decide they're going to jam in this bubble that they're living in down in Orlando. Let's see how that works. Okay? But for the first time in NBA history, the reality of franchise values no longer going up and, quite frankly, potentially coming down is a real reality. And everyone used to ask me, well, how the hell can they pay this much for a team? You know what I told them? I said it's not based on any economics. The greater fool's theory. The greater fool's theory. You know what the greater fool's theory is? Is that find somebody that thinks that your asset is worth more than you think it is. No matter what the numbers say. You can't justify paying $2 billion for something that might throw off $5 to $10 million a year. Most of the teams aren't making an operating profit. They're not trying to make an operating profit. They buy a franchise and the tree grows all the way to the sky. That's going to end. And remember on this show that I said that's going to end. I would not want to be one of the last guys that got into the league for $2 or $3 billion. Now, some of these guys got so much money they don't care. But the NBA and the situation in China, the reason that Mark Cuban avoids the subject is there's really nothing for him positively to say about it. It's a huge hit to the franchise values and to the NBA in general. And there's no other way to look at it. And between you and me, it's not getting better anytime soon. For Ted Cruz's part, Ted, look at, just let Mark Cuban exercise his constitutional rights as it relates to standing, sitting, kneeling, talking, whatever he does during the national anthem. The Constitution allows for him to do that. So I think we've got to quit now just rubbing our fingers in sand in people's eye. This is, again, combative. There's no reason to do that. We need to just sit down and try to come up with a way where people can negotiate, people can talk to each other civilly, and we can work these issues out. For the last time, again, I stand for the national anthem. I'll stand for the national anthem for the rest of my life. But it's someone's right to be able not to do it. Okay. Let's go to the last segment before we bring our guest on. And we're talking now in this segment about the vaccine, all right? There's been a COVID-19 so-called breakthrough on the vaccine. Roll the tape.
This deal, I guess, has been, obviously, we're hearing about it today, but it's been in the works to some extent. Why Pfizer? Is that an indication that the government thinks that Pfizer has the lead right now? There's also an Oxford team. There's Moderna. There are 26 teams working. Why Pfizer?
Well, first, it's important to recognize that we now have 5 major investments in vaccine portfolios, and we're going to keep looking for additional ones if need be. But this Pfizer one's really historic. As Meg described it, it is a contract, an advance purchase contract, where we can acquire 100 million doses of this vaccine as early as December of 2020. And have the option to buy an additional 500 million doses. And we just saw clinical trial data from the phase 1 of the Pfizer vaccine this week that shows that it produces what we look for in an early stage of a vaccine, which is neutralizing antibodies and at levels equal to or better than what we see in recovered COVID patients in their convalescent plasma. So really a historic agreement that President Trump led us to here.
All right, so I don't think that that's negative news at all. I think that's actually positive, that we're in a situation now to where a vaccine is 1,000,000% necessary in the world, okay? If you really want to now stem the tide of this pandemic, a vaccine that works. But that's the whole issue, you know? They can't rush into these things, but if what Azar is basically saying, that he thinks that this could be available by December of this year, that is certainly some promising news. What it is not is a fix to the current problems that we have with social distancing and wearing masks and paying attention to the rules and not having COVID-19 parties and all the other crap that's out there, okay? It's not a fix for any of that. People have got to show more discipline in the United States of America at all levels. I told you that in the last show that 85 babies under the age of 1 came down with this virus in a county outside of Corpus Christi, Texas. Okay? This thing is real. And now we're going to get into a discussion about some of the fears and some of the other things that you're going to have if you have school children or you have school grandchildren. You know, this is a big issue. So you're going to really have to start paying attention to it. But the vaccine itself is a positive development if everything Azar is saying is correct. We just got to get to the next couple of steps before we throw a party that we've solved this thing. Governor DeSantis needs to get his act together quickly. All right. Our guest today is Krystal Hurst, as I mentioned at the top of the show. Can we bring Krystal on? Because I want to give Krystal an opportunity to be able to explain her organization and her background. Krystal, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you doing?
Well, I'm doing great. I really appreciate you taking the time in your busy schedule to be on the show. And I'm excited to have you here because a lot of people are struggling that have children with what to do with some of the circumstances that are coming down the pike as it relates to opening our schools. And, you know, you look at the calendar, Krystal, I mean, we're in some cases less than a month away. I mean, this is really coming upon us now pretty quickly. So first off, why don't you tell the viewers of the To Be Frank show about your organization, you're the owner, and what you guys actually do.
Yeah, so I'm the owner of DallasMoms.com and CollinCountyMoms.com. We've been around, or at least the Dallas site has been around for going on 10 years now, and next year will be our anniversary. So what we do is we provide online resources and support for parents. And actually up until March, we planned in-person events, but that of course has come to a stop. So right now we're fully online, but we're trying to provide as many resources to parents as possible. One of the things that we're known for is we also have about 20 volunteer writers on our staff who are local to the area. And so they provide in-person experiences from local moms and give moms all different viewpoints and advice.
Well, so what is the predominant issue that not only you have, but the 75 to 100,000 members of your organization? What is the predominant issue that people are facing now with the reopening of the schools?
Yes. So we've actually taken several just community polls to find out what moms are thinking and feeling. And I think a lot of moms right now just have no clue what's going on. And I think the big problem is the lack of communication coming down from both the school districts as well as the state. So as you mentioned, I know for my school district, we are supposed to open in about 3 weeks, and we have still yet to see a plan or a blueprint in place for what in-person or virtual learning is going to look like. Yet we're also supposed to be making a decision and giving the school district a decision, I believe, by the end of next week as to what we're supposed to be doing as a family. So just in general, I think families are feeling very confused. They're going off of information that they're learning from their peers, as well as what we're hearing from the news and associations like the American Pediatric Association and the CDC. But we're having to piece all of that information together rather than being given clear directives from the state and the local authorities that should be providing that information.
Is it a concern of yours and your organization that because of the way that certain states reopen their state, is it a concern of yours that if the school districts go down a path like some of these states have gone down, that this could end up being disastrous for our children?
Yes, very much so. And I think that's, from a health perspective, that's the big concern. From when you're hearing parents that say they want to pull their kids to virtual learning, or even a lot of moms and parents are actually going the homeschool route now. I think you're going to find so many parents choosing to actually homeschool their kids for the next few years rather than putting them back in public school. They just don't know what to expect. From a health perspective, we've got grandparents to think about. We've got family members who might be immunocompromised. There's lots to consider and lots of factors, let alone the educational aspect of it.
Well, and let's get back to a comment that you made that's really, I think, the crux of all this is you're 3 weeks out here in Dallas, okay, because we go to school a little earlier down here, but you're 3 weeks out in Dallas, and quite frankly, nobody's given anybody any guidelines about what the hell needs to happen, about what it's going to be like to go to school, what the procedures and policies are going to be. Now, see, to me, as a human being, that's scary to me. And you say?
Yes, absolutely. I was hoping for something as early as July 1st. And of course, I know our districts are having to wait for recommendations from the Texas Education Association and things like that, the TEA. But so we're just constantly having to wait for guidance from the next chain of command. And when those are just slowly trickling down, it leads to something like this, where, like I said, I believe by next Friday, we're supposed to be making a decision, online or in person, and we have nothing to go by.
Well, let me ask this. Is the governor and his people, are they involved in all of this?
Yes, to my knowledge, they are. Now, the TA kind of operates separately under the state of Texas, and they have told us that they're basing all of their recommendations on the CDC recommendations. But that can be interpreted in so many different ways. And then what the districts do is they take that information from the TEA and they interpret it on their own. So even right here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, almost every single district is doing something different. We have schools that have even chosen to go almost the year-round route, whereas we have districts that are choosing to start sometime even as late September, early October for in-person. So everybody's doing something different, which doesn't help parents who are trying to make those decisions.
So tell me a little bit about, my kids are older now, and we didn't deal with this, obviously, when my kids were going through school. Tell me about telelearning. Tell me about how advanced that has now become, because I'm a complete novice about it. Obviously, I think that telelearning and telemedicine, by virtue of the coronavirus, are going to become hugely used mediums as we move forward, because we're going to learn from this virus that a lot of in-person things, especially in business and other things, are just not as necessary as we once thought they would be. Tell everyone that's watching the show about the advancements in telelearning and how that works for a parent.
Well, so that's one of the mysteries, right? So we know what telelearning looked like this past spring when everything just came to a halt immediately. And we were literally, at least for our school district, we never came back from spring break. So fortunately, my boys, my elementary school boys, I have 4, ages 2 to 9, they brought home an iPad. actually just my third grader did that. I had to request one for my first grader. And then once we came back from spring break and we started this virtual learning, everything was done via iPad, but it was very much a cluster. Every teacher was doing things differently. Every grade was doing things differently. It really was just up to the parents to figure out what worked best. And of course, you have the working parents to consider who really were struggling, because when you have to either be working from home or working away, how are you supposed to provide that education for your children? It was very much all over the place. We have been told that that will not be the case, that they have a very clear outline of what virtual learning will look like come this fall. Again, we have not yet seen that plan as parents in the district, but we understand it'll be a little bit more structured, different for pre-K through second than third through obviously high school. Everything will look a little bit different. But we know it's going to be a little bit more structured, but as far as what exactly it looks like, we don't know.
There again, I think, Krystal, lies the whole issue here. You know, you don't really know about what's going to be expected once they go back into the classroom 3 weeks out. Telelearning is still not completely organized. I mean, this really feels like, to me, there's an old saying in business, I can't even hear what you're telling me, just show me. Because it's all a bunch of just speak. You know, I want to see the facts. I want to know, you know, what are we really talking about here? But this is, I think, a system in general, Krystal, that is caught off guard. I think that, like a lot of other aspects of the United States of America and, quite frankly, the world, the pandemic came upon us so fast and so strongly that we had no time to prepare. We were not prepared for this, okay? Now, you know, that's not a political statement. You know, but we were not, as a country and as a planet, we were not prepared for this. This is the worst thing that I've seen in my lifetime when you cross over all of the issues. So, you know, you really have, I think, highlighted all of the unknowns. It's really difficult for people that are out there listening to this to try to make a decision on what they think, because there's not even enough information that's being provided in order to make a decision. And I think that's part of the issue.
Yes, I agree. If, you know, for my family personally, my husband works from home now indefinitely. I run a business from home. So those are two big factors that go into whether or not, you know, we should be sending our kids to in-person school. I've also spoken to my pediatrician, but like I said, very much it's just trying to watch the news and read the guidelines coming down from the CDC, as well as the Pediatric Association, and trying to figure it out for every family. You know, we feel fortunate that worst case scenario, if I have to put my business to the side for a little bit in order to homeschool or virtual teach my kids, because there is a very big feeling that within a month of school reopening, at least in-person school, everything will have to come to a stop again and go virtual. And so we're basically planning that even if we do send our kids to in-person school, it will eventually become virtual again. But I feel so much for those families. I believe it's over 60% of American families have two members of their families working. And I do not know what they're going as far as having to provide an income for family and, you know, leave their children at home while they go to work. It's just an awful situation all around.
Well, how about in the inner cities, Krystal? Talk about this, because, you know, we've got a wide variety of audience here. How about these poor moms in the inner city that have to send their kids to school? A lot of kids are fed at school. You know, I mean, we're going through this whole thing. I mean, what about these families that are really in need now of some structure and in need of some ability to be able to at least understand, like, what's going to happen in the next 6 months? These inner city kids, I really feel for.
Yes. Yeah. And like I said, I know a lot of them are waiting and anticipating for school to reopen so that they can send their children back to a school environment where they know that they're going to be safe and they're going to be fed, especially the low income families. But like I said, many of us are planning and expecting that once school does reopen, within a month or two, it's going to have to shut down again. And we're going to be right back to where we were in the spring. It may be a better learning situation in the sense that the schools hopefully have it a little bit more together, but it's still going to be the same, situation at home for families where they're trying to figure out what to do in order to keep their own immediate family safe, but also still provide an income.
All right. Well, in closing, Krystal, my last question to you is this. As the mother of 4, are you concerned about sending your child into an environment where they could actually catch this virus? Is that something that you think about?
Yes, very much so. And mostly because we do, I'm fortunate enough to have 4 healthy boys, but we have both sets of grandparents in town, one set of which does have health issues. So we have, what we're trying to decide is it worth my children's emotional, mental state to send them back to school to have that experience? If we do that, what do we do about visiting with grandparents who we know it's going to potentially cause, health issues? So there's lots of factors to consider, more so than just, are we at risk of getting COVID? It's, again, that concern about the community and about extended family.
Well, I've had some people that I knew that homeschooled their kids, and I was completely against it. And I'll give you my reasoning why. Is that I think that a child learns more about how to live in the environment that they're in as much as they learn in science and math class. Being able to get along with others, being able to communicate with others. I'm a byproduct of playing team sports, and that helped me immensely in my business career, being able to try to understand how a group comes together. But I think with children, they get as much out of the social interaction of actually going to school every day. And that's the sad part. But quite frankly, I think we have to be careful, because what we don't want, Krystal, and you've just given me 2 reasons to be incredibly concerned, when 3 weeks out, we don't even have the procedures and policies down, and the telelearning is all over the board. Those are 2 reasons, I think, for anybody who watches the show or anyone who's out there that has children or even concerned about children to have a little bit of pause here. How does somebody join your organization?
So they can just simply come to dallasmoms.com or collincountymoms.com, and we have a lot of resources right now about just what you just said about getting started even with homeschooling. We're going to have lots of information about virtual learning, and then we also have information right now about the TEA as well as what they need just in general about making some of those decisions.
And people, this is a national and international show. People from around the country and around the world could still plug in and get information, correct?
Yes, we are actually part of a national organization called City Mom Collective. So chances are, if they're in a major city, if they type in their city name, such as Baltimore or Milwaukee moms, they're going to find a sister site or our organization that has very similar resources.
All right. Well, Krystal, it's been great to have you on the show. I wish you well with your 4 healthy kids. I hope that you can come back after all this is decided and tell us a little bit about what went on, right? Because I'm really now anxious to really hear from you and figure out, how did this really roll out and what has been the effect. So we're going to have you back on again. Stay in touch with us. Make sure you put the show on your website and let people know the 2B Frank Show. And it's great having you on, and stay safe.
Thank you so much for having me. I'd love to come back.
All right. Thank you. Okay. I mean, if that doesn't get you, nothing's going to get you. I mean, here's a woman that does this for a living that doesn't even have answers to the most basic questions. It reminds me of the opening up of Florida, Texas, Arizona, Georgia, and 20 other places. Okay? I mean, we got to be careful here. We got to be careful here. We can play politics all day long. Let's get the kids in school. We're going to send them to school. It's what we're doing. But, we can't go off the cliff like we went off the cliff, 2.5, 3 months ago, and got a bunch more people infected, got the hospitals now all jacked up. We can't do it. But that is a little scary in terms of actually listening to an on-the-ground person that really is dealing with this day in and day out. And so we're going to keep up to speed on it. In closing, I mentioned that I was going to mention Portland and Seattle. Okay? What a mess. Now, Chicago I have in a different category, just for everybody, again, to completely understand. Chicago is a deal that has been going on forever. These two mayors in Portland and Seattle, the Summer of Love mayor and Teddy Wheeler, this is all political, ladies and gentlemen. Okay? They hate the president. They want the president out. Now, we're not advocating you vote for the president. You vote for whoever you want to vote for. There's pluses and minuses that have to be weighed in any election. But don't risk the safety of your constituency because you're following some roadmap that people are throwing out there that says we got to get Trump out of the White House. You know how many people are getting injured by the fact that every single thing in our country has become political? Remember what I keep saying every show. If you're not here, you're not going to solve any problems. If you're not in the middle, you know, Ted Cruz, you want to fight with Mark Cuban, and Ted Cruz is a good senator. I got nothing, there's nothing wrong with him. But have a real discussion about the issues and why certain people feel a certain way and why they don't feel a certain way. The same thing, Portland, they tear gassed the mayor. Ted Wheeler got tear gassed yesterday in his own city. Who would have ever thought this 6 to 12 months ago? And all this is politics. Every single bit of it is politics. So we're going to cover a lot of these issues on a go forward. This is our 9th show, and we're really gaining in viewership and people interested in trying to hear what we have to say. You can find our show on the 2B Frank Show YouTube, the 2B Frank Show Twitter, the 2B Frank Show LinkedIn, and the 2B Frank Show Facebook. And you can also now get the show, it won't be live, but you can get the show on the 2bfrankshow.com, which ultimately, again, is for every dinosaur that's out there, and I know there's a bunch of them, that can't operate a computer or just start hitting buttons and all this stuff. So we're trying to make it easy to get the show. And we're excited about doing this show and about the growth of the show. We want to hear from you. And until Monday's show, I want everybody out there to stay safe, stay with your families, and please just try to figure out if you're one of these parents that listened to the show today and heard what we all heard. Protect your kids. Make sure that your kids go into an environment that's safe. Until next time, I'm Frank Zaccanelli, your host, signing off. The 2B Frank Show in Dallas, Texas. We'll see you on Monday.